I believe that if you want to be successful, then you need to learn from someone who is also successful. You're not going to want to grow a business from someone that hasn't owned and run a successful business. You're not going to learn how to code from someone that doesn't know how to code. So you're not going to want to learn to trade from someone who can't trade. So in today's video, I'm going to give you some bits of advice, how I stay successful in my trading even after 5 years. So how do I maintain being profitable when some traders might be complacent, they might start, hitting burnout. How do I maintain consistency and how do I become so successful? So the first point is I always try to keep in tune with the markets. And keeping in tune, this basically means I will always check the charts. Let's say I have a day where there aren't any setups. So I open the charts, I look at the pairs I'm going to trade, let's say GBP USD for example. I go on the chart and there isn't a setup. I'm not just going to instantly close the charts. I'm going to go in my journal and I'm going to write down what I saw. What made it that in that session there wasn't a trade present? What do I think is going to happen in the markets? Because let's say there's no trade valid, but you consistently see something in the markets that isn't in your plan, but you're seeing something that's working. Maybe you could add that into your strategy because you're missing out on loads of good setups because you're not in tune with the markets. If you're trading just a strategy that is this confluence, this confluence, this confluence, it can be quite easy to kind of wait for setups that are too perfect, for setups that are too high probability. And obviously, I don't feel like there can be one that is too perfect because if you have everything you need, then it can be a good trade. But people try to chase perfection and this doesn't exist. So if you're seeing something consistently and it is correct, the analysis that you're doing in your mind, and if you write it down in your journal, this is why I mentioned that, you can look back and see, okay, so I've noticed that there wasn't a valid trade, but this level I've marked out 4 months in a row now has actually hit and then gone to where I thought the price was going to go. And then you can look into this. But you'll only know this if you are in tune with the markets. It's like fighters, for example. I always give an example in a different sport that people can perhaps relate to. They call it ring rust. So for a fighter, maybe they've been fighting 5 years consistently and they take 2 years off. They could be a really good fighter still. They could probably be a better fighter, but they've had 2 years out. So obviously in trading, you're not going to take 2 years out and then come back to it because that would be quite stupid, especially if you are consistently profitable. But the fighter's never usually the same. They're not going to be 10 times better because they're just not in tune with it. They're not in tune with being punched in the face in that kind of high pressure environment. And trading is always high pressure. You go onto the charts knowing that one click of a button and you can lose thousands of dollars. You can lose your hard-earned money. So I feel like in an industry that is so pressure focused and that can be so stressful for a lot of people, you definitely need to focus on being in tune with the markets. So even if I'm away on holiday, I'll just check the charts, see what's happening. I'm not going to do a full journal. If I'm away on holiday, I'm away from the markets for a week, but I just want to see what's going on. I want to see if there are certain movements. I just want to be in tune with the markets, and that is something that I feel like a lot of traders neglect. Another thing which also helps with this is creating a solid trading routine. When I was trading in 2020, 2021, this was kind of out of the window for my trading. So I'd wake up. I didn't really have any time I wake up. I just wake up, go on the charts when I felt like it. And, I was making money. There's no doubt about that. I was making profit. So it's not like it was bad. But having a system in place where you're waking up at a certain time, you're eating breakfast at a certain time, you're going to the gym at a certain time, you're trading at a certain time, and then you have a cutoff for when you're not trading, it can be super beneficial to your results. And I often refer it to when you're at school, for example. They have school set out in a certain way to get the best results. If they just said you can turn up at any time, as long as you do your work throughout the day, then it doesn't really matter, we don't care. Schools aren't run like that because they know that you're less likely to do the work. Whereas if you have a set hour for a lesson to do the work and you have to complete it in that hour, you're going to do what you have to do. And this is the same for trading, in my opinion. If I have 3 hours where I need to be trading, I'm going to make sure I have 100% focus and I know exactly what I should be doing during that 3 hour period. You don't want to be distracted. You don't want to, during those 3 hours, then have notifications popping up. And then you start messaging someone. Then you start scrolling on Instagram. And now you're scrolling through Reels. And the distractions just mount on top of each other. And you end up potentially missing a setup. Maybe you could mismanage a trade. Obviously, that is an extreme scenario. Mismanaging a trade, losing thousands of dollars as a result from scrolling on Instagram Reels. But the whole premise of having a routine makes sure that you know when to trade. So back in the day, I could trade at 5 p.m. I could trade at 11 a.m. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm talking about way back in the day, 5 years ago now. And that's because I didn't understand my strategy. And I feel like what's holding many people back, and probably 90% of the people watching this video, and I speak about it a lot, people get fed up about how much I speak about fully understanding your strategy, but I feel like the only way for people to understand it is to just try it for themselves. Just try it and just see the results. I see lots of traders think they have a profitable strategy, and then they realize when I say to them, go and test 2 years or 3 years of your strategy from the past 2 or 3 years, 2023, 2022, 2021, go and test it and show me the results. And 9 times out of 10, they will come back and say, it wasn't as I expected it to be. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. The traders that say they know their strategy, they don't know their stats. They don't know how to even trade their strategy. And because they don't know their stats, how do they know what risk to put onto each trade? How do they know how much drawdown they could potentially have over a 12-month period? How do they know the perfect risk to reward? How do they know the session, the time frame? They just don't understand this, which means they're going into their trading with very little confidence. If you're not collecting data, your strategy is going to be all over the place. You might think you know what to do. So many people say, oh, I don't have a trading plan written down, but I have it in my head and I know what I need to look for. This is immediately the biggest red flag in traders I've ever seen in my life. If you hear someone say that, then you know they can't trade. It's as simple as that. Someone that has it written down, kind of like a list for what they need to see. So I open the charts, step 1. Step 2, I do your overall analysis. So is there a break of structure? This is for my trading, for example. Is there a break of structure of a previous high or low? If yes, okay, move on to the next stage. If no, you can then say, okay, is there going to be a potential break of structure? If yes, set an alert. If no, close the charts and go about your business. But then if it obviously is yes, you set an alert at that level and then you can go about your day still, but you have that alert just in case. And if there is a break of structure, okay, you move on to the next step. And you kind of have it as a systematic approach to trading. If you have this, what's the next step? If you don't, what's the next step? Very, very simple. And just by having this and understanding your strategy, just by looking for 1 minute, 2 minutes, just, looking at the charts, looking at your list, looking at the charts, looking at your list. And that can be a very, very simple thing to do. Most traders will not do this because they don't want to actually fully understand their strategy because it comes with hours and hours and hours of work. But just by having that at your desk or maybe on a Word doc that you open every time you're in your trading hours, it can just reinforce the fact that you need to be disciplined too. Because discipline is what makes a good trader. Discipline, especially behind the scenes. So everyone wants to be able to make the profits. They want to hold these large positions. They want to have minimal drawdown, large profits, big months, big days. But you can only have that if you've put in hours and hours and hours behind the scenes. The work that nobody's going to see, but mostly it's the only work that really matters. It takes less than a second to enter a trade, just a click of a mouse. Whereas those months and months of backtesting in the past, you can't replicate that within a click of a button. So the actual trading aspect is the easy part. Collecting the data, understanding your strategy, then implementing it correctly, and remaining disciplined when you are implementing it is the part that people struggle with. They don't want to do the hard work, which means they won't see the good results. And that is why if you want to be successful, you need to consistently improve and be disciplined. Right now, I'm testing something to improve my strategy. I'm collecting more data. I'm backtesting more. Constantly trying to improve my results. With my Forex profits, I'm looking for different investment opportunities. I'm not just going on a plateau. Okay, I've made 3 profitable months now. I've completed trading. I'm a profitable trader. Let me never backtest again and just trade like this. It's not going to work. It could work for a few months, but you constantly need to be improving, constantly need to be developing your edge to work better in the markets. And if you don't, you're just going to get left behind. You need to improve every single day, or else you will lose.